Hello, you noble people. My name is The Noble, and we're continuing our hot take series with this time trying to do some Undertale hot takes. If you want to be in the next video, which I do plan on making a couple of these videos like I did with the Deltarune one, then I recommend you comment on the post or even on this video if you want to leave some of your own hot takes. I will appreciate it if you only do Undertale. Some people were doing Deltarune hot takes. Well, yes, I might still use that for possibly a part 3 of Deltarune hot takes. This video is just strictly talking about Undertale and the hot takes you have with that game, not Deltarune. First off, we have a double whammy with the first person saying the Frisk is their own person. While it is in a part of a very intentional from Toby, it feels shallow and kind of tacked on for the game and doesn't really feel like it's their own personality. They don't really do anything within the game to have their own personality, and it's just kind of there as their own character separate from the player. They're very complicit and they just don't do anything. They don't like get mad at us like Chris does when we do Genocide, when we do pacifist routes. They're just kind of there aside from a couple little dialogue like choices that seemed to be influenced by Frisk, while the second person saying people who think Frisk is a blank state with no personality is an extremely shallow surface level reading of the game, which is very interesting that both of these answers are completely different from one another. I can see how both of these are actually very interesting takes upon what it is, with the second person saying that you don't have any reading comprehension while the first person has a bigger response. There is something that you should ask questions about. You shouldn't just like agree that Frisk is their own character and has their own personality when we're not really shown too much. And that is what I think is the purpose. I'm not necessarily going to sit in here and say that Frisk is the most interesting character in Undertale, because they're definitely not. Like most of like fan media when Undertale first happened had to fill in the dots on what Frisk's like personality was, because they are just an open slate character that is supposed to be malleable to the player and is kind of the complete opposite of what Chris is. And I feel like that is intentional by Toby to have a character that you play as still be a different character, but just be kind of fine with whatever is going on, and then to have that 180 while Chris is actively trying to go against whatever the player is going against. I don't necessarily think that Frisk is a nothing burger of a character, but I don't think they're full of personality either. My hot take is that Chara isn't evil. They are just an already troubled kid that has too much responsibility put on them when they're young. Asgore telling them and Azrael that they're the future of humans and monsters might be harmless from Asgore's perspective, but I believe Chara took that to heart. Which, on an unrelated note, I think it would be cool if Toby did an animated series adaptation of Undertale where they actually explore some of Azrael and Chara's childhood before the tragedy, like before we learn what really happened, get sprinkles of information through their flashbacks, or maybe Chara wrote a journal or something. I don't know. I think that it is neat. I 1,000,000% agree. That really isn't as a hot take as it is nowadays as it would be in really early Undertale fandom, with us being a lot younger, like teens and preteens. Obviously, we saw the evil kid and instantly thought evil kid. I mean, like, they have a giant thing where they slash us in the Genocide route, so a lot of people are going to make that immediate connection and not think deeper, when in reality all it is that the Genocide route is an exaggeration of the personality of a child. Chara is obviously mad at the humans that wronged them. They are going to the mountain to do something to get away. Obviously, the humans that had wronged them or did something to them left a resentment, and they're a child. They don't really know better. That is the entire idea of Chara, in that even though they are still like manipulative to Azrael, they're not necessarily fully evil, just a kid who doesn't understand what they're doing fully. And regarding an animation, I do think that would be cool. I would actually rather we get stuff more or less in an Undertale remaster if we were to get one, and with that stuff with the flower and asking for memories, I think we might get something possibly. I would really love to see if we were to have something related to Chara in that remaster, just like more notes or something, and also to the other hot takes, maybe you would get something more for Frisk to understand their story and why they wanted to go to the mountain as well. Undertale is a very good game. When comparing it to other games of its genre, Omori, One Shot, Deltarune, etc., it's mid. Okay, I can see where you can make a case where Omori, One Shot, and Deltarune are all better than Undertale in some way. I definitely think Deltarune improves upon all of the stuff with Undertale a lot better. I think the fights and stuff are really well made, and I think around chapter 5, I will probably always like Deltarune more than Undertale, but I'm still always gonna like Undertale. But saying it's mid, kinda mid, is a gross exaggeration, because even while Omori One Shot might be technically better, I don't really know. I think I played a little bit of Omori and I kind of watched the rest. It's been a while. It's been, I think, since it released I watched someone play it, but I completely forget. I know basic story stuff about it, but I still think that saying that Undertale is mid while not acknowledging its cultural impact is undermining all the accomplishments it has made, because it is definitely like the game that is defined like indies and RPGs for a while, and trying to write it off as being mid compared to the other games is a gross exaggeration. Like saying the original Mario Brothers is mid compared to like Mario Wonder, yes, of course it's going to be that. It's a really old game compared to the newest iteration, but you can't cast it aside and say it didn't have any charm and say that it still didn't lay the groundwork for these other games. Final area, New Home, kinda sucks. Where it works in-game, the city could have been an interesting area and made this transition from dancing sexy robot Metaton to the depressed goat dad wannabe Cthulhu less abrupt. It would allow for Asgore to have some build-up in his own area. I agree that on paper, it's bad. Like, even Undertale Yellow has a much more interesting one. Even though there's not too much to do in that New Home area, it is still cool. And the game also gives us away by saying the elevator to this new home is actually locked off. You can't go there. The only way is to actually go through the core to go where to Asgore's actual house is, and not the actual New Home area. That being said, I don't think it is abrupt, and it perfectly sets up Asgore. Well, yes, it is pretty much just ruins, but again, and like Toriel's house, but again. But it sets up the story of Asgore so perfectly, with all of the monsters appearing, telling you the story of Asgore, and telling the story of Toriel, Azrael, telling the story of all of them, in you also being able to, like, the iconic phrase, despite everything, it's still you. I still think this is one of my favorite areas in Undertale. Now, that being said, do I think I wanted a New Home city area? Yes, I think that would have been cool, and maybe we could see that in like a remaster or something like that. Maybe get like updated graphics and stuff, because when you're walking along and you see all the cities and like buildings in the background, it looks really cool, and you're like, I want to go over there, and then you never actually go over there. But for what it does in game, I think it is amazing. I don't think Chara should have appeared at the end of the Genocide route. Sure, it might have served the overall narrative themes, but logically it makes no sense. Does Chara just get inside the body of every red soul human who enters the underground? How? And don't even get me started on how it makes the massive relationship between Frisk, Chara, and the player 10 times worse. I get why Toby made it happen, but I'm assuming that's in universe, it makes no sense. I don't want to be mean, but I definitely think you didn't necessarily read dialogue or understood it. Chara isn't tied to every red human soul. We don't know any humans who had another red soul. We don't even know if Chara themselves had a red soul. All we know is that the original 6 humans, what their color of soul was, and then that we have the red soul, or Frisk has the red soul. The reason that they are reincarnated and appear at the end of the Genocide route for narrative is because that the determination we had from actually killing monsters grows over time because of the level of violence we have. Like Sans states that with every XP, every love or level of violence you get, you can distance yourselves to hurt others more. And that is the kind of the idea that Chara had when a kid, to try and like destroy the humans, to hurt the people that betrayed them, and that gets exaggerated when you get to level 20. So when they are reincarnated, they just are only kill. They're not necessarily evil, it's just an exaggeration of what they did. They didn't even know why they were reincarnated until they watched us, the player, kill people and think that is what we're supposed to do. At the end of the day, they're still a child. And I also don't understand what you mean by how it makes the relationship between Frisk, Chara, and the player 10 times worse. With Frisk and the player, there is more stuff that you can ask why, mainly because Frisk doesn't really say anything to go against you doing the pacifist or going against you doing the genocide route. But with Chara, it's very cut and dry. We just enabled them to do something, and then we either give up our soul or don't, depending on what you do at the end of the genocide route. And then you can have your soulless replay throughs of the game with like the Chara appearing at the end of the pacifist route, or the picture with all the X's crossed out of the people's eyes. It's not necessarily like a situation where it makes them worse. It can be confusing, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to make fun of you for not understanding it. It can be confusing, but I think you are missing a couple of plot points and just giving me like some spark notes. And that is going to be it for this video. I had a lot of fun. There weren't necessarily as many insane ones. I feel like with Deltarune, people were like big and bombastic with the new chapters and whatnot, so it necessarily was like everyone having an information overload. We've kind of literally have been sitting on Undertale for 10 years now, so when it comes to more hot takes, they seem more grounded, and I did get a lot of Deltarune, which I chose not to do. So if you do want to see another one, I recommend you leaving comments for specifically Undertale. I will probably make a YouTube post or something, maybe even another like short video or a YouTube short, to say if I am going to be doing one for Deltarune again. I will probably do another one for Undertale, but I want to try and get a decent amount of them. This time I didn't have too many, only a handful or so. These videos are always going to be a little bit shorter, but I want them to try and be a little bit longer, depending on the type of actual hot takes I do get. So leave your comments down below on what your hot takes are for part 2. Stay noble. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.